Hello and welcome back to my Arnold prep training series. Meet prep has been going overall pretty well. Every week I have hit a PR in almost everything. I think bench is my sad child right now, but I did sustain a rice bag injury earlier in this training week, so I think that's somewhat related. Plus, I have really been trying to fix my position with bench. I realized that as I switched over to flats, somehow I started to bring the bar closer and closer to my neck rather than touching lower. So I've been trying to relearn how to bench, and it's a little bit frustrating because it used to come kind of naturally for me, and now I tend to think about everything to the point of almost overthinking. Another thing that I'm adding is I'm trying to really think about where I bring the bar to. And in the past, I would just bring it down and it would touch at the right place, and I wouldn't have issues on technique, mostly strength. And now I feel like a lot of my problems are technique related. It almost feels like I have to get everything moving in the right place in order for bench to work out. And so there I failed 90 kilos. I was supposed to do a set of 6, 3 times, and I wasn't even able to do it 1 time. But this day I was also feeling like I maybe strained my pec a little bit, because just a couple days before that I was carrying a 50 or 55 pound bag of rice, whatever the Costco size is. I was carrying it up the stairs, not close enough to my body, so I think I kind of bicep curled it, and in doing so my pec cramped up really hard, and I noticed it right away. I probably shouldn't have carried it that way, but I'm not really good at carrying objects in a way that doesn't hurt myself. So this is part of my week 5 training, which is the hardest week of every block. I do 5-week blocks, so I have one more 5-week block until the Arnold. Luckily, my other lifts have been going pretty well. That was the worst bench day that I've had in a really long time, but bench has also been the most inconsistent lift for me for the last year. So I think, with that in mind, that I was just having an off day. It was just a couple days before my period, which is usually when I feel the weakest. I was just worried about straining my pec, and so I feel like at least I managed to do a single that was somewhat near a comp level of difficulty for me. My other sets didn't go well, but my pec felt better in a few days, and I think it's kind of back to normal now, so I'm just going to pay more attention to how I carry things. But I also noticed a couple weeks before this pec cramp that I started to feel my pec during my deadlifts. So I do bench the day before I do deadlifts, and I think my pecs were still kind of sore, and so I felt it kind of feel tight on my other pec, the one that I didn't cramp. And so I started to notice that, and so when my right pec cramped with the rice bag, I was just kind of worried that bench would affect deadlifts the next day. But it went from I don't even know if I can lift this week because of the deadlift pec sensation a couple weeks prior, and also I was worried about squatting because having to hold the bar in the position where your pec is stretched, I couldn't really get into that position without any weight, so I was just worried when that happened, but I was able to get through the rest of the week just fine. So other than the really bad first day, things went well. I started the session with pause sumo deadlifts 152.5 kilos for 3 sets of 5, and that gets me kind of fatigued, so by the time I do my singles, I am a little bit tired, and I think going forward we will reduce the amount of pause sumo sets before I start doing my singles, because I want to get a better feel for what singles I can hit the day of the meet. I realized from training last meet that by the time I did all my pause sumos, I was really tired in the bracing muscles. I think my back and my legs could probably pull something heavier on meet day, but because I hadn't done anything close to what I was pulling meet day in training, or what I thought I could have pulled meet day for training, I was kind of scared to try that for the first time on the platform. I feel like I have more confidence when I get to practice with that type of weight in training rather than going into the meet and thinking that I'll just add like 10 or 15 kilos the day of. And that's not something that would apply to all lifters. For me, I just feel more comfortable with weight that I'm already experienced with. So next I have my squat day. So this is the day after deadlifts, and this was a PR of 97.5 kilos for 3 sets of 7. And this is not a movement that I would recommend for everyone. I do get some people asking me if one type of squat is superior to the other. And I think unless you're doing powerlifting, you don't necessarily have to do low bar back squats. I personally found high bar to be more comfortable most of my training years, and I switched to a more low bar position when I changed my brace. Front squats feel very comfortable for me, and I don't think that's really the norm because you're kind of limited by shoulder mobility, among other things. Sometimes it's hard for people to balance this weight. For me, it's a good way to get some volume in without really beating up my back as much because you can't go as heavy. These were the last sets of front squats for me for this prep because I will be switching over to my other knee sleeves, the Inzers, which is the set that I will use for competition. And I like doing the front squats in SBDs because I think they allow forward knee travel a little bit better. The Inzers, I feel like, restrict my knees from coming over quite as much as you do in front squats because you can see that my butt goes deeper with front squats just because of the position I'm in, and my knees come forward a little bit more. Just like with the deadlift days, I do my singles after the front squat, so I'm already a little bit tired, kind of warmed up though, and I do some practice singles. These practice singles are mainly to help me practice technique with heavier weight, and the volume is doing the majority of the strength building. These singles are just to give me an idea for what numbers I'll probably hit meet day from opening to third attempt, and it also helps me to kind of mentally prepare for what that weight will feel like. After the singles, I do sets of 7, and sets of 7 are an interesting amount of reps for me. The first 3 reps feel really easy. By the 4th rep, I am mentally talking to myself saying, okay, you're gonna finish this set, like you're gonna do it, you just have 3 more, and then when I do 5, I'm like, you just have 2 more. It's a mental game of really committing to the set. The last rep is usually kind of hard for me, and I usually don't feel like I can do one more perfectly, but I think part of it is also because mentally I know I just have 7. So sometimes I wonder if I were told to do sets of 8, if I could really just squeeze out one more, but it's either a mental thing or whoever is making my plan knows what numbers I should be hitting perfectly. So what's kind of been mind-blowing to me is the weights that I have been doing for sets of 7 have been close to what I used to do for a meet attempt. So this is a weight that I definitely wanted a spotter for maybe less than 2 years ago, and now I'm doing it for sets of 7. So that's a really good sign to me that I've been making progress. I know that as I get older and as I've been doing this sport longer, it seems like it gets harder and harder to make progress. It's months of doing these sets of 7s and 6s, and really trying to refine my technique that get me to be able to add 2.5 kilos to a lift, twice a year if I'm lucky. I see people who are just starting out who make way more progress in their first couple years, or even are hitting numbers that I could never dream of as a 20-some-year-old. Because to me, I think what has helped me is I did years and years of hypertrophy training before getting into powerlifting, and I don't really have blessed genetics for this, as in I'm not really explosive. I have a really long torso. I have really long arms, so that's not super helpful for bench, and I didn't realize that until last year. But I'm just doing what I can with the time that I have, knowing that at some point I will have put on my last 2 pounds of muscle or something, or I'll have hit my best total ever, and that it'll start going downhill at some point. I think maybe that day, if I'm lucky, is 10 years from now. So I'm just trying to enjoy as much time as I have, and being able to find new ways to make progress has been extremely rewarding. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching my videos, especially if you made it through the almost half an hour long turkey video. I just felt like I had to put that out there before I could get back to the Arnold prep, because it had been a few months since that trip, and I really just wanted to capture my thoughts and feelings about it before diet and meat prep brain set in. I do recall that the last block of 5 weeks for me, I was way more tired than this week. So I'm not sure why that is, but I'm really glad that that wasn't the case, because I was so fatigued and I kind of thought it would get worse as the meet got closer. So hopefully 5 weeks from now, I'll be functioning still.